How long does it take to create a work of art? A few hours for a painting? Perhaps a few months for a sculpture? What about making a movie? Robert De Niro had gained 60 pounds in 4 months preparing for Raging Bull. Daniel Day-Lewis had stayed in character for 9 months during Lincoln. Both are legendary examples of method acting, but what Kubrick did with Eyes Wide Shut was different. I've watched this film 3 times now, and every time the same feeling. Something off. The way the actors move in the ritual scene, the expression on Tom's face when Nicole describes her fantasy. It doesn't feel like acting, it feels real. The film had taken 400 days. For comparison, the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy was shot in 274 days. Kubrick had broken the world record for the longest continuous film shoot. But why? Why so long? He had waited 30 years to make this film. He had kept Tom off-set during Nicole's scenes. He had never told the actors what they were filming, and 6 days after finishing the final cut, he died. Now let's return to those 400 days, to what really happened during that time, because this story begins with 2 people who had no idea what they were getting into. November 1996. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman arrive in London. They're Hollywood's golden couple, actually married, actually in love. They sign contracts for Stanley Kubrick's new film. 6 months, he tells them. Just 6 months of shooting. But here's something you need to remember. Kubrick had been waiting 30 years to make this movie. He bought the rights to Arthur Schnitzler's Dream Story back in 1968, right after finishing 2001, A Space Odyssey, and he just waited. Why would someone wait 30 years? What was he waiting for? We'll answer that. But first, let me tell you what happens on day 1. Tom walks onto set. He's prepared. He knows his lines. Kubrick looks at him and says, "Forget everything you just prepared." Tom adapts. He does the scene. Kubrick watches. Again. They do it again, and again, and again. One scene. Tom walks through a door. That's it. How many takes would you need for that? 5? 10? Tom Cruise did it 95 times. Now, I don't know about you, but I've done creative work. I have worked in many jobs, and there's a breaking point. You stop thinking. You just start reacting. That's what Kubrick wanted. He wanted that breakdown. The moment you forget the camera exists, that's when real emotion comes out. But that's just one day. Remember that 6 months Kubrick promised? It became 400 days, over a year of continuous shooting, the Guinness World Record for longest film shoot in history. And during those 400 days, something happened to everyone on that set. But before we talk about what happened behind the scenes, we need to understand something. What is this film actually about? Because if you don't understand that, nothing else makes sense. You're watching a married couple, a doctor and his wife. They go to a Christmas party, they come home, they smoke weed, and then Nicole Kidman's character says something that destroys everything. She describes a fantasy she had about another man, a naval officer she saw on vacation. One look, that's all it took, and she was ready to give up her marriage, her child, her entire life, for one night with a stranger. Watch Tom's face in that scene. I've watched it multiple times now, and every time it feels too real, like he's not acting, like he's actually hurt. Hold that thought, because there's a reason it feels that way. From that moment, the entire film becomes Tom's character going on this nightmare journey, trying to live out what his wife only dreamed. And this is where the title makes sense. Eyes Wide Shut. You're looking, but you're not seeing. You're awake, but you're dreaming. It's about willful ignorance, the things we choose not to see just to survive our daily lives. Because if we actually saw everything, every desire, every fantasy, every truth, we'd fall apart. The film has this dreamlike quality. Nothing feels quite real. The colors are too saturated. Christmas lights are everywhere. Every single set has a Christmas tree. Every set, except one. And that brings us back to that masked ritual scene. But before we get there, you'll probably want to see where this channel goes next. Hit subscribe. Trust me on this one. Mentmore Towers, a Rothschild mansion in England built in the 1850s. Kubrick spent an entire month filming just that sequence. 1 month for one scene. He brought in over 50 actors and models. He imported real Venetian masks from Venice, historical masks, each one chosen specifically by Kubrick himself. He hired a choreographer named Yolande Snaith. She spent months designing the ritual movements. Every gesture had to be perfect, but this scene has so many hidden details, things you miss on the first watch. First, the password system. Bill gets in with Fidelio. That's the name of Beethoven's opera, but it's also the Italian word for fidelity. Ironic, right? He witnesses the ritual. 12 naked women standing in a circle. A figure in a red cloak in the center, holding a staff and a censer with incense. He strikes the staff on the ground once. That's the signal. The ritual begins. But then Bill gets caught. They ask him for the second password. He says he forgot it. Here's the thing. There was no second password. It never existed. It was a trick question, a test. Everyone who belongs there knows there's no second password. By saying, "I forgot," Bill exposed himself completely. But that wasn't the only way they knew. Later, Ziegler tells Bill exactly how he got caught. Everyone else arrived in limos. Bill showed up in a taxi. When they took his coat, they found the rental receipt in his pocket, made out to his name. He was marked from the moment he walked in. Now look at the masks themselves. Bill's mask came from Rainbow Fashions, a costume shop. It's cheap. Everyone else's masks are authentic Venetian masks, centuries old. There's even a detail most people miss. At Rainbow Fashions, Milich's daughter whispers to Bill, "You should have a cloak lined with ermine." Ermine, that's fur from a weasel. Kubrick is literally calling Bill a weasel, an imposter who sneaks in where he doesn't belong. The ritual itself combines two traditions, Venetian carnival and Catholic rites. Kubrick researched this for years. He consulted with G. Legman about secret societies. He studied 19th century Black Mass illustrations. Artist Felician Rops provided expertise on weird erotica. All of this went into designing one scene. And the music, that unsettling chanting you hear, it's a Romanian Orthodox church hymn played backwards. Sacred music reversed into something dark. But here's what makes this scene so disturbing. Kubrick never told the actors what they were filming. Let me say that again. The actors had no idea what they were doing. Imagine this. You're an actor. You show up to this massive historical mansion. You put on an elaborate mask. You're surrounded by 50 other masked people. And someone starts giving you commands. Stand here. Move there. Raise your arm. Turn around. Walk forward. No explanation. No context. No script. Just movements. How would you feel? Probably exactly how they look on screen. Genuinely uncomfortable. Genuinely confused. That's why that scene works. That's why it feels so wrong when you watch it. The actors weren't pretending to be disturbed. They were disturbed. You're not watching acting. You're watching real psychological discomfort captured on camera. And it's the only scene in the entire film without a Christmas tree. No decorations. No lights. No illusion. Just cold, hard reality. The masks themselves tell a story. They're Venetian Commedia dell'arte masks, centuries-old designs. In the original tradition, these masks allowed people to be anonymous, to do things they wouldn't do if people knew who they were. Sound familiar? The entire film is about masks, not just the literal ones at the ritual. Tom's character wears a mask as the perfect husband. Nicole's character wears a mask as the perfect wife. Every character is hiding something. We all wear masks. That's what Kubrick is saying. The ritual isn't some exception. It's just the only place where the masks are visible. Now, remember that feeling you get watching Tom's face when Nicole describes her fantasy? That pain that feels too real? There's a reason for that. Kubrick shot Nicole's fantasy sequence over 6 full days, and he banned Tom from the set. Tom couldn't watch, couldn't be there. He waited outside while his real wife filmed intimate scenes with another man for 6 days. And Kubrick told Nicole, "Don't tell him what we're doing." Can you imagine that? Your partner is doing something you can't see, can't know about, for 6 days, and they're forbidden from talking to you about it. That's not creating dramatic tension. That's creating real jealousy, real insecurity, real pain. And you can see it in the film. Watch Tom's face again. Now you know why it looks that way. This is what Kubrick did for 400 days. He didn't just direct a film, he manipulated a marriage. Tom Cruise developed a stress ulcer, a real medical condition from the stress, but he kept it hidden from Kubrick. He didn't want to affect the process. Think about that. You're physically breaking down, and you hide it because you believe in what you're making. Remember when I said Kubrick waited 30 years to make this? Now you understand why. He wasn't just waiting for the right stars. He was waiting for the right couple, a real married couple, because he wanted to capture something real, not acted, real. March 1st, 1999. After 400 days of shooting and months of editing, Kubrick delivers his final cut. March 2nd, they screen it. Tom, Nicole, and studio executives watch together. Kubrick's only message, this is it. March 7th, 1999. 6 days later, Stanley Kubrick dies of a heart attack, 70 years old, 6 days after finishing his last film. Some people say it's coincidence, but think about it. He'd been trying to make this film for 30 years. He finally finished it, and then, almost immediately, he was gone. Like he was holding on just long enough to see it completed. And 2 years later, in 2001, Tom and Nicole announced their divorce, after 11 years of marriage. So here's my question. What happened in those 400 days? Kubrick separated them on set. He created real jealousy between them. He filmed Nicole for 6 days doing things Tom couldn't see. He pushed them both to psychological breaking points. Did he destroy their marriage on purpose? Or was it just a consequence? I don't have the answer. But when you watch the film knowing what happened behind the scenes, you can't unsee it. Every moment of distance between Tom and Nicole, every scene of jealousy and insecurity, it's all real. They're not acting, they're surviving. That masked ritual scene, those uncomfortable actors, that disturbing energy, it's real because Kubrick made it real. He didn't want actors pretending. He wanted actual disturbance captured on film, and he got it. The film is about the masks we all wear, the fantasies we hide, the willful ignorance we practice, the distance that grows in relationships. And Kubrick didn't just make a film about these things, he made his actors live them. That's why Eyes Wide Shut still feels so unsettling. It's not just a movie, it's a document of real psychological manipulation, real pain, real breakdown, all captured on camera. Kubrick spent 30 years waiting to make this, 400 days destroying his actors to capture it, and 6 days after finishing, he was gone. The ritual scene isn't just disturbing because of what you see, it's disturbing because of what it represents. Real actors, real confusion, real discomfort, all for Kubrick's vision. That's what happened in those 400 days.